Now we proceed to the second part of our study of the Constitution. We now proceed with human rights, no, as they are guaranteed or protected by the Bill of Rights. This series of lectures refer to our civil liberties and how they are guaranteed and protected by our fundamental law. Um, from our understanding of constitutional law, we had a notion that the constitution and a good constitution has essentially three parts: the constitution of government, of sovereignty, and of liberty. When we speak of the constitution of government, it refers to the entire governmental structure. You find this in Article 6, 7, 8, and 9, among others. This refers to the portions of the constitution referring to the Congress, the Executive Department, the Judiciary, the Constitutional Commissions, and the other commissions in the Constitution aside from the COMELEC Civil Service and Commission on Audit. This gives us the basic structure of the government, its powers, and its constitutional obligations. We have the Constitution of Liberty, the second part of a constitution, which guarantees the democratic process of adding or amending or um, revising the Constitution. It is the provision on provisions on Article 17 that guarantees the presence of the Constitution of sovereignty in our 1987 Constitution. The third Constitution is what you call the Constitution of Liberty. This is a series of prescriptions setting forth the fundamental civil and political rights of citizens and imposing limitations on the powers of government as a means of securing the enjoyment of those rights. This is in the Bill of Rights. This guarantees the rights of persons as respected and given high regard by our state. Now, in the Constitution, human rights, protection of civil and political rights are not only found as mentioned in the Bill of Rights, they are also mentioned in some scattered provisions of the Constitution. Section 11, for instance, of Article 2 says that the state values the dignity of every human person and guarantees full respect for human rights. Section 1 of Article 13 says Congress shall give the highest priority to the enactment of measures that protect and enhance the right of the people to human dignity, the reduction of social, economic, and political inequalities, the removal of cultural inequities by equitably diffusing wealth, and the political power for the common good. So this is the equalization provision of the Constitution. Section 17 of Article 13 also says that there is hereby created an independent office called the Commission on Human Rights. And of course, education being a right itself is also recognized in Section 3 of Article 14. Educational institutions shall inculcate respect for human rights as well, aside from it being a right. But you have the Constitution guaranteeing the right of the student, because in the Constitution also in tax, you also have a guarantee there that the state must afford access and quality to education, no? Accessibility and quality of education. This is a right that is in education law. You would learn that basic education is a matter of a constitutional right as guaranteed in the Constitution itself. The right to tertiary education, however, is guaranteed by international law, not international law, but the Free Higher Education Act, because even international law guarantees mostly the elementary education only. Okay, but by mere inference and extension, perhaps until the end of the basic education. So here are some fundamental principles on the Bill of Rights. Foremost, that the Bill of Rights is the bedrock of constitutional government. If the people are stripped naked of these rights as human beings, democracy cannot survive and government becomes meaningless. It tells us that the Bill of Rights guarantees democracy and the democratic way of living. If there is no Bill of Rights, then people's rights may be threatened. But for me, honestly, it is not the Bill of Rights per se that guarantees human rights, because all human beings have rights already. It is only the Bill of Rights that limit government intrusion of private rights. Because if you, I remember a professor of mine saying before that what guarantees a democratic way of life is not even the Bill of Rights primarily, but the structure of a government, Article 6, 7, and 8, where if you observe, even China has a comprehensive Bill of Rights, no? But um, well, you know what I mean. But when we have a bad government, regardless of the existence of the Bill of Rights, even during the martial law period, we have the Bill of Rights, but still human rights violations have been committed. Okay. Um, Human rights are needed to protect and preserve um, every individual's humanity, to ensure every individual can live a life of dignity and a life that is worthy of a human being. Short of saying that the Bill of Rights guarantees for a human and happy life. Okay. Um, then you have the values of tolerance, equality, and respect can help reduce friction within the society. Putting human rights ideas into practice create a kind of society we want to live in. A livable life, an ideal life, is a life where everybody respects and recognizes our dignities and our rights. Now we go to the fundamental principles in the understanding of the Constitution. Foremost, the Bill of Rights balances governmental power and individual freedom. Um, the Constitution provides, the Bill of Rights provides to individuals such rights to protect themselves from encroaching powers of government. It creates parameters and limits that government can do um, to people in the exercise of its policies and functions. No? Um, Remember, the Philippine state, as a state, has three inherent powers: the powers of eminent domain, police power, and taxation. Remember also that the Constitution is not essential in statehood. Thus, being inherent, even without the Constitution, the government can appropriate private property, can restrict human action, and can even enforce taxation. Sometimes we could say that if unbridled, it may be abused. But um, this power is vested in it because of its democratic state, or its sovereign state, no, its sovereign existence as a state. Um, this means that whatever the state says is binding because of its inherent powers, as far as the three inherent powers are concerned. However, the state, despite its inherently illimitable powers, can choose to limit itself, and the Constitution is a manifestation of those limitations. Also, limitation is the property of a state force, due to which it has the exclusive capacity of legal self-determination and self-restriction. So, it is the Bill of Rights that is in the Constitution, one of the paramount sources of state limitations, no, insofar as individual freedoms are concerned. Because with the Bill of Rights, the state can require itself to limit its intrusion of private rights because of the principle of constitutional supremacy. So, in the Bill of Rights, we have such guarantees. But again, the democratic way of living is not necessarily found or guaranteed by the Bill of Rights, but on Article 6, 7, and 8, structure and powers of government. The Constitution does not give us these rights anyway, because the fact that we are human beings, we are naturally with innate rights. The Constitution, being a prescription of limitation by the state, no, from the authorship of the Filipino people, as far as 87 Constitution is concerned. The Constitution does not give us rights. It only provides us with defenses against state intrusion. Because natural law, by the fact that we are human, we have the right and duty to flourish. And sometimes state intrusions can hinder our flourishing in natural law. Um, Men are created as equal. We have inalienable rights. We have the right to liberty and property. And these rights are all natural rights. Government are instituted among men, deriving their powers from the consent of the governed. The government does not have any inherent right that it uh, is given to it, its right, even it, in the creation of a state, originally comes from the right of the people to choose to create a state and institute a government, prelude to that. So, second principle, in the absence of governmental interference, the liberties guaranteed in the Constitution cannot be invoked. Saying that the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, can only be invoked against the state. Remember that the Constitution refers to the limitations of the state as in its relationship with the inhabitants and the people within its territory. No, the Constitution is auto limitation. So the Constitution may be invoked against the state, but it cannot be invoked per se against private individuals. The Bill of Rights governs the relationship between the individual and the state. Its concern is not the relation between individuals, between a private and individual and another private individual. What the Bill of Rights does is to declare some forbidden zones in the private sphere inaccessible to any power or power holder. This case of Irasegi versus Pal is an employee who feels discriminated because he was terminated for being overweight as a flight steward. But when he returned to work, he was no longer allowed to do so because he was deemed to have been removed from office because of his incapability of keeping up with standards. He says that his counterparts, his colleagues, also were similarly situated, but were treated differently. They were given another chance. And he cries foul and says that the Philippine Airlines violated the principle of equal protection. But the Supreme Court said that equal protection principle in the Constitution is not invoked by private individuals for other private entities, but must be invoked against the state. So in the absence of government interference, Constitution cannot be invoked. No. Read also the case of Serrano versus NLRC. This refers to employment, no, employment status. No. Why cannot we invoke the constitutional guarantees against the employer? It's because it is not the employer that deprives you of life, liberty, or property. It is the state. No? But we invoke our constitutional rights in the court when trial is too slow. It's a violation of the right to speedy trial. When no jurisdiction is possessed by the court, when the court fails to follow procedure affording the accused of the right to be heard, then the counsel can invoke due process because it is not invoked against a private counter litigant or opposing party, but it is invoked against the state, the court being part of the state arm authority. There's a contrary view in saying that, well, you could play devil's advocate in saying that that principle is very questionable because is it not that in the principle of constitutional supremacy, it says that the Constitution must be written in all laws, governmental policies, and even in private contracts. Therefore, it must affect private agreements and private relations. No? The Constitution is deemed written in every law and every government issuance. The application of laws and government regulations, their provisions should not be interpreted in a manner that will violate the fundamental law of the land. Issues relating to rights are matters imbued with public interest. That's why the Constitution must also be made to include any private citizen in against each other when it is invoked. What are the remedies in case of the violation of your rights? Well, the Bill of Rights itself has certain remedies, like the principle of the fruit of the poisonous tree for illegally obtained evidence, no? And so on and so forth. But um, uh, what can be done in case a private citizen invades the rights of another private citizen is they can invoke either criminal or civil law. Okay. Zulueta versus Court of Appeals. It appears here that the counsel, that the husband has invoked his constitutional right to privacy against the wife who pried on open her letters, reading personal messages. Supreme Court said that the the spouses do not shed off their constitutional rights upon marriage. So, but this refers to evidentiary matters, not on substantive matters. Third principle is human rights enjoy a higher preference in the hierarchy of rights than property rights, demanding that due process in the deprivation of liberty must come before its taking and not after. So remember that human rights, human life, human rights, which include the right to be alive, enjoy higher preference in the hierarchy of rights. That's why you have the Constitution says saying that no person shall be deprived of life, liberty, than property. So the human rights come before property rights. Um, this principle on the self-executory nature of the Bill of Rights. Remember that the Bill of Rights is not self-execute. The Bill of Rights is self-executing. No, this is the case of Manila Prince versus GSIS. Remember, in Constitutional Law 1, we mentioned some principles, including the principle of general rule that provisions in the Constitution are self-executing because if the principles, the policies in the Constitution are not self-executing, then we would be left hostage with um, the motivations of Congress in creating rights that will give power to the Constitution. The Bill of Rights, well, there are provisions in the Constitution that are not self-executing. For example, declarations of principles and policies. No? The matter of some matters in party-less system, for example, and the likes, or compensation to victims of martial law. But law was required to give them teeth. But generally, all principles or provisions of the Constitution have power no as law, including the Bill of Rights. Okay, including the Bill of Rights. Bill of Rights is a strong example of executory provisions in the Constitution. International law and the Bill of Rights, geographically general accepted principles of international law and the Bill of Rights. For such general principles, no further law is required. No, when they are mentioned in the Constitution. This is an example of a generally accepted principle of international law. The Philippines renounces war as an instrument of national policy and adopts the generally accepted principles of international law as part of the law of the land. So this is one provision where the generally accepted principles are deemed part of international law by incorporation. These are norms of general or customary international law. This includes a person's right to life, liberty, and his right to due process, pacta sunt servanda, among others. But the generally accepted principles of international law are part of statutory law and not of the Constitution. Okay. Treaties come by way of transformation. No? Treaties become part of the law of the land through transformation and not by incorporation because they need the consent of Congress first. Remember this case of Republic versus Sandigan Bayan. If you recall this case, the general's house was raided sometime after the People Power Revolution and before the onset of the Freedom Constitution. We were constitutionless. Can this evidence be admissible? Is the search valid? Supreme Court said that during the interregnum, you call it the interregnum, the point in our history when we had no constitution, we were covered by the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights and the UDHAR, Universal Declaration of Human Rights, and they are part of the generally accepted principles of international law. Because surely the Philippines, as a democratic state, adheres to that principles embodied in the Declaration of Human Rights and the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights. See you in the next video.